What's up, my family? Listen, first-time listener, or you've been here the whole damn time. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, giddy up, let's go, no notes.
That's my baby.
That's my baby.
We're going at it at 110%.
I just want 5 minutes of happiness, please. Just give me 5 minutes.
And they scored! They did it!
Slap.
What the hell was that? Oh, yeah!
What the f*** are you talking about?
What's going on, fam? Welcome to another Monday edition of Philadelphia Phillies Talk on Here's the Thing with Mitch Williams. Myself, Chrome, joining. Tom's out today, but he will be back next week. Mitch, how you doing today, brother?
Chrome, I'm doing good, buddy. Wish
Happy
the Phillies had played a little better over the weekend, but what did we say last week, Chrome? If you take another week of games off the schedule and you've gained ground in the wild card picture, it's been a good week.
Which is pretty crazy, considering they went 500. But we're going to talk about that. Happy Labor Day to you, by the way.
Yeah, you too, buddy.
To everybody else out there. But first and foremost, let's talk about Gleason's Bar. Gleason's located 6700 Mill Creek Ave in Levittown, PA. If you use the promo code A2D for any online purchases, takeout, dine-in, you're going to get 10% off. You stop in there, you drop the A2D name, boom, 10% off. Or you could use it online at Gleason'sBarandSteaks.com. Our topic of conversation, we're going to open with, Mitch. Now, I wanted to go a pitching route, but we've been kind of, I originally thought, maybe we'll talk about Aaron Nola, but we kind of did that last week to open. I figured this is going to be the broad perspective. So I am confident in the Phillies starting rotation leading into the playoffs. Agree, disagree. And again, I wanted to encompass Nola, but again, me and you before we went on the other, right? Michael Lorenzen struggled a little bit as of late, his last couple starts. So I figured let's encompass all the starting pitching at this point and see where we're standing. So what do you think, Mitch? Are you still confident in the starting pitching?
Yes, I'm confident in the depth. I'm confident in Lorenzen's ability to locate and change speeds. I'm confident Ranger will come back stronger than he did yesterday, coming off that hamstring injury. So they've got depth. You look at what happened in Milwaukee. Wheeler got hit pretty good, and Nola, after two great starts, where's he at? He looked like a world beater for about 2 innings in that game the other night. Mm-hmm. And just progressively, as the game went on, he did exactly what we talked about last week. Started getting under the ball. His breaking ball flattened out. His sinker had no depth to it. And that's what happens. If you're not focusing pitch to pitch mechanically on what you need to do to make the pitch, you have an issue, especially this time of year, because your body is fatigued. You're in September of a 162-game schedule. Your body is fatigued at this time of year, so mechanically you have to do everything right to get everything out of your arm speed, and that's just not happening.
Yeah, so it does seem like we've seen some of those mechanical issues that you pointed out quite a bit over this year, kind of peaked themselves late in the game. And again, we talk about Michael Lorenzen struggling a little bit. We were talking about guys getting a day off in September, maybe to kind of get things together, or get their heads right, get a little bit healthier, get a little bit of extra rest. Do you think that that's something that we're going to kind of maybe ramp up over the next week or so?
I would hope so. I hope with his ability, Rob Thompson would find days off for his starters. Let him miss a start. Mm-hmm. You have enough depth in that rotation that you can afford to do that right now. You got a 5-game lead in the wild card. If you're ever going to give someone that needs a day off, as far as a starting pitcher goes, it should be now.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. And I think, obviously, with Ranger coming back, that's a guy you want to stay in because you want him to kind of get his bearings back under him.
Yep.
Speaking of Michael Lorenzen, what do you think has been the issue in terms of his last couple starts and kind of, some people say, he's coming back down to earth because, this is kind of a career year for him. But I think we both agree that he's a pretty good starting pitcher and maybe just kind of scratching the surface on things. So what do you think his issue's been over the last couple of starts, and particularly this week?
Location of his fastball. I think fastball location and the ability to make his changeup look like a strike, they're just taken right now because he hasn't been locating as well as he had in his previous starts. I'm not the least bit worried about it. I look at this guy, he knows what he's doing on the mound. Mechanically, he has an idea what he's going to do with the baseball. I just think he needs to concentrate on locating his fastball. When he locates his fastball, that makes his changeup that much better. His slider, it's an okay pitch. It's not a wipeout slider, but it's an okay pitch to keep people off of your fastball and your changeup. He is a fastball changeup guy, and if he's not locating his fastball, it makes his changeup that much easier to take.
Yeah, and do you think he's maybe not mixing up pitches as much either? Maybe do you think he's still kind of falling in love with the fastball, even though he's not locating it, instead of working with his other pitches to kind of gain that kind of confidence back?
Well, the thing is, when you're not locating your fastball, you want to figure out why. And 9 times, I tell all my little kids that I coach, high school kids, professional pitchers, to locate the baseball, you locate the baseball with your nose. Wherever you drive your nose to, that's where that baseball should be going. If you're mechanically sound in your lower half, then all you have to do is fall and drive your nose where you want the baseball. And I know people are going to look at me and go, well, how are you going to talk about locating? Look, there's a lot of shit I couldn't do that I knew what I was supposed to be doing. And it's an everyday thing. You're fighting it all year long. And that's all he has to do. He just go back, look at the video of his first start with the Phillies, his second start he threw a no-hitter, I believe. Go back and look at those videos. Reinforce the positive, don't reinforce the negative.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. And obviously we touched on Nolan, kind of seeing some late game mechanical issues that he kind of went back to. But as far as the rest of the starting rotation, we talk about Ranger coming back. I don't think I really worry about him coming off of that injury. I think it's just more of getting his repetitions in now between now and September and feeling confident and stronger on the hammy. But when we have Walker and the rest of the pitching rotation, Wheeler, I don't think we ever really worry about, in a long term. But how do you feel about the rest of the rotation at this point, really entering September? And again, Mitch, they have a very favorable schedule in this second half, right? They have a lot of games at home, a lot of teams that are either not in the playoffs. Well, I mean, I know they have another Atlanta series, but they have teams that are either not even close to in the playoff picture or are like fringe. They're not even playing a whole lot of the top teams at this point. So how do you feel about the rest of the rotation filling out the rest of the way?
I feel good about the rotation. What they have to guard against is exactly what you're talking about. They're going to be playing some teams that have nothing to play for. Teams like that are dangerous. When you can go up there, if you lose, it don't matter. If you win, it don't matter.
Right.
That makes those players dangerous because they have no pressure on them. They're just going up there swinging from their heels, and you have to completely concentrate against teams like that because it's September. Our starting pitchers are going to face a lot of kids in September that they've never seen before because of all the call-ups that are going to be coming. So when you're playing teams that are out of it, that's when you have to focus the most. Because if you give those games away, now your tough games against Atlanta, teams like that, they're going to come back and bite you. You can't flip the switch on and off. I really don't believe in that. I believe it's a 162-day season till you get to the postseason. Your focus for the postseason should start right now.
Oh, I agree. I think you want to take a momentum in because, you don't have time to build that confidence back. And we talk about certain series, right? Me and you and Tom have been on here before saying, this is an opportunity to go in here and build a little bit of confidence, gain a little bit of momentum. That kind of goes away at this point. When you're talking about the last couple of weeks of the season, this is where you need to gain that momentum because when you start losing confidence at this point in the year, that's not good. Going into the playoffs, backing into the playoffs on your heels.
No, it's not. But the positives that I look at right now are two of the negatives that we've been talking about all year long, and that's Trey Turner and JT. Both of them looked much better in Milwaukee. JT's going to the ball with his front side. He's getting back to square. You see what happens when he gets his feet back to square?
Mm-hmm.
He hits a ball way out of dead center field.
Mm-hmm.
Trey Turner, the same thing. When his barrel stays up, he is a dangerous hitter. But when he lets it lag, he's an out. So those are the focus points I'm talking about going into the postseason. You have to figure that stuff out and figure out a way to make sure you can repeat it on a day-to-day at-bat per at-bat basis. You have to go up there and concentrate. If you don't, you might find yourself on the outside looking in.
Yeah, and you know, those two guys are so key to the success of this team going in, right? That's two of your guys who are your catalysts. You know, JT behind the plate, but as well as with the bat, you know, he was expected to be in there and be one of those guys who consistently is putting, you know, getting runners on base and driving runs in. And we haven't seen the consistency with him. And obviously, Trey has really turned it around, I think, over the last month. He looks so much more confident. And like you said, you're not taking that extra lag in the speed with holding your bat further. His bat speed's much better. He's making better contact. He's driving, situationally hitting very well right now. So is there any concerns in terms of the bullpen? So they did blow a couple games this week. And when we're talking about the starting pitching, right, this is not a time that you want to have to utilize your bullpen a whole lot and go real deep into games. Short starts with starters and have to go deep into your bullpen at this point to get rest. So
I'm sorry, but Chrome, I'm going to interrupt you here. Yeah. There is no way a 9-man bullpen should need rest. I'm sorry. If anything, it should be hard to find them innings.
Right. You
don't worry about rest with your bullpen. Craig Kimbrell has what? 18 or 19 saves?
It's good. Probably somewhere
around 20. I know he only had 14 at the break. But this is a guy, he hasn't been overused.
No,
the whole bullpen has not been overused. They should be primed and ready to go now that it's September. And they're going to be able to call kids up. So how many more kids are you going to have in the bullpen in September?
No, it's true. And that's something that we talked about a couple of weeks ago in terms of having the ability to bring up some depth and give guys a little bit of a rest or a little bit of time that way by going deeper with some of your young guys that come up. He has this year in saves 22. So you were pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, he's not overworked.
He's not being overworked at all, actually, no.
Yeah, he had 14 saves at the break.
Yeah.
So that means in a month and a half, he's saved 8 games.
So he is coming up, just looking at a couple of his numbers. So in the last, 2018 with Boston, he had 42 saves. Since then, the highest total he's had is 24. He should eclipse that this year.
Easily.
He is coming up on the most innings that he's pitched since that same year, which was 62 and a half. He's at 58 now. He had 60 last year with 22 saves. His numbers are very similar to last year. Those ERA is down a little bit from last year. But yeah, I mean, I don't worry about him. He's pitching so many big games too, Mitch. I mean, this is a guy who he gets up when it's a big moment.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the back end of the bullpen. The 2 left-handers come in and just blow you away when they get the opportunity. Every now and then a hitter cheats and runs into one of their fastballs. But you're talking about a bullpen that has 9 guys in it right now. When they expand the rosters, which they should have already done, unless they do that later since I retired, but you look at that, they're probably going to bring up at least 2 or 3 pitchers. You're going to give
that's usually what they do nowadays. It's more of having the depth in the pitching rotation, the pitching staff.
Right. I mean, that's where another situation where Rob Thompson's got it made. 9 guys in the bullpen already. You got 6 in the starting rotation. So, I mean, to me, the back end of our bullpen should be our strength.
Mm-hmm. So September 1st, they do expand rosters on September.
That's what I thought.
It doesn't look like. So, how many guys did they used to bring up to you before?
We could go from 25 to 40, I believe. And then if you make the postseason, they cut it back down to 25.
New normal 26.
That's what the 40-man roster's for.
Yeah.
They don't normally call up
I don't
all
think
those guys.
Yeah, I don't think they do as many players anymore. I can't see exactly.
No, they don't.
But it's a lot less because that's what I thought. It used to be a 40-man because I remember you'd have some guys bought up. But yeah, anyway, that being said, yeah, I mean that's going to open up a lot of opportunities for the Phillies in terms of giving, fighting innings for guys. And I think it gives you the luxury too of finding situational innings where guys, you're not just bringing guys in, right? This is a situation we may see in the playoffs. Let's put a guy out there. Let's see what we have. If this is somebody we could trust in these moments.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to be facing a lot of that over the next couple of weeks as well.
And like I said, when you bring these young guys up from AAA, every other team is going to expand.
Yeah.
Some of these AAA guys are going to know these AAA hitters.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the games, okay, we're going to see what you can do, giving you a start. You're facing a team that's out of it, that has nothing to play for. Go out and show us what you can do. And then you kind of find out if you have any hidden gems in there, guys that are mentally capable of pitching at this level. Mm-hmm. This is where the rubber meets the road, basically. You're going to throw a guy out there and find out if mentally he has the ability to stand on that mound and go at big league hitters without panicking.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a quick moment to show a little more love towards Gleason's here before we continue our conversations. And again, guys, 6700 Mill Creek Ave, Gleason's Bar. It's in Levittown, PA. If you use the promo code A2D, you're going to get 10% off. That's for dine-in, takeout, any online orders. You're going to get your 10% off. Gleason's Bar and Steaks.com. So make sure you guys check them out. But yeah, so this week, Mitch, tough week. Tell us what you saw in the it was the Angels. I think they played first. Whew. I saw they had a whole lot of offense in that series.
Yeah, Ohtani wasn't supposed to play in that series, from what I remember from last week's show, but he definitely got some at bats.
They said he wasn't pitching. They weren't sure if he was going to be able to hit, but clearly that's not an issue. He's in the lineup hitting now.
Yeah, he can hit.
Yeah, I mean, guy's one of the most amazing professional athletes, not just baseball players, professional athletes I've ever seen. But
yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah. But what were your takeaways? What were your things of maybe, I don't want to say concern, but good, bad, or indifferent? What were your takeaways from that series against the Angels?
Well, considering we don't see him much, and the fact that Trout wasn't in the lineup, that just benefited us. Not having to face Ohtani on the mound benefited us. But it showed me that the offense can go out there and score, like we've talked about before, and take pressure off the pitching staff. And it's at this time of year where hitters start making adjustments. And I'll talk about one guy in particular, Bryson Stott.
Yeah.
He's played damn near every day. I mean, he's been one of the best players on this team all year long. Mm-hmm. Right now, he's kind of in a lull. This is the time of year that hitters go to a lighter bat. And I don't know if anyone's expressed that to him or not, because to me, he's late on balls that he was catching up to earlier in the year. Mm-hmm. So it might be time for some of these guys to drop down an ounce in weight in bat and understand it's September. After 100 games, I'll tell everybody out there watching this, at 100 games, your body is shot. It's that simple. It now becomes a mental thing. Mm-hmm. So, physically, you're not 100%. There's very few guys that are 100% physically in September. Whether your fastball's off, your bat speed's down, whatever. The bat speed you can adjust to because, like I said, you go to a lighter bat. I think these are some of the things that the veterans are going to have to get in some of these young kids' ears and talk to them about getting ready for the postseason. But other than that, Marsh looks good to me. They got Pache back. Mm-hmm. This team is a set team. and going into the postseason and through the month of September, I think that Rob Thompson really needs to come up with a starting lineup that he's going to use in the postseason. I don't think, as well as Bohm has played at third base, I still think he's the best first baseman on this team. Bryce has done a pretty good job there. So he has that option, but he's got to use the month of September to come up with a set lineup going into the postseason. There can't be all the jockeying, moving Turner and Bohm and all. No, come up with a set lineup so these guys know what to prepare for.
Yeah, and it just feels like that's like today's game now, right? Like there's no real set lineup. It's like every day we're switching around who's got success, which I get.
Yeah.
But it's not like the old days where you knew, you could sit there with a wiffle ball bat and I could call out, the entire running Redbirds team and know exactly who hit in what spot. Terry Pendleton hit here. It's not the same way. Guys are all over the place. And playoff wise, I do feel like a set lineup is what kind of makes more sense because maybe changing it up as I don't know. What's your opinion on that? Do you think playoff wise you should?
Playoff wise, you have to have a set lineup.
So why do you
whether or not it's a platoon situation like we had?
Mm-hmm.
We had 3 platoons in '93. I've never seen it work before. I've never seen it work since. We had guys that all they wanted to do was win. The only platoon system I see is when you're taking Schwarber out of the leadoff spot and putting him in the DH spot and putting Bryce at first base.
Mm-hmm.
He has to come up with a set lineup. If Schwarber is going to DH in the postseason, he either has, I think, the way he ought to go, and this is just me, I think Marsh should play left field in the postseason against right-handed pitching.
Mm-hmm.
He has options now. And with Pache swung the bat good this year for the Phillies.
Yeah.
When he's been healthy. But the center fielder, the young kid, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Rojas?
I think, I believe so.
I can't remember.
On here after his first weeks,
That's
Miguel Rojas.
Rojas.
Johan Rojas. There we go.
Johan Rojas. I knew it was Rojas. Yeah. That kid's got to be the everyday center fielder. He covers ground, gets incredible jumps. You can hit him 9. He'll put the ball in play. He can run. You want defense. Pitching and defense wins in the postseason.
Well, you're talking about the defense too, right? So,
right.
I know you're an eye test guy, but just to entertain the conversation here, right? When you look at the Phillies defense, and as much as we praise Bohm with the bat, he's one of the worst graded defensive third basemen this season, particularly. Same thing with Castellanos as far as right field, and Schwarber is one of the worst graded outfielders in baseball defensively. Do you think that contributes to some of the issues, say, for a guy like an Aaron Nola, who, we talk about where his pitch location has been at, but, it's one of the things that they measure these guys now on the defensively is one defender getting to a ball that an average defender would get to, right? It's one of those advanced.
Right.
Do you think that contributes, A, to like, say, an Aaron Nola struggles a little bit, and B, does that concern you going in that there are some guys in this, and again, I mean, the bat with Castellanos and Bohm alone, it's not as much of a concern because I think, for whatever they give up defensively, I think they make up for a lot with the offense. But does that concern you as far as defensively behind the pitching staff? There are guys here who are not high graded defenders.
Well, we knew that going into the season.
Right.
There was no way in hell this team was going to be ranked in the top 20 defensively. Just wasn't going to happen. But the improvements that Bohm has made at third base, it, for me, has been outstanding. Mm-hmm. He's played really good first base. That and the fact that he's 6'5" or 6'6" don't hurt. So having him over there at first base, it's hard. Because Harper is not going to play in the outfield, I don't believe.
No, well, that's the problem, right? So we're talking about like a defensive liability of a Schwarber, right? But
you have to – Kyle
DH?
Schwarber has to DH.
He has to DH.
Has to DH in the postseason.
I do agree. I totally agree with you. But then I think, see, like where else can you play Bryce, right? Because I agree with you that
Nowhere.
Bohm over at first base would be much better. I wish you could put Bryce in the outfield, and that's kind of where this is a little bit. Having that flexibility would have been incredible for this roster, because then you're really set. You have tons of options, and I do feel like it handcuffs a little bit. It's great he's available for the field at all, considering what he went through, but
we're not going to see him in the outfield, Chrome.
No, not till next year.
And you're only creating a different problem for yourself if that was the case.
Right.
Because then you got to move Castellanos to left.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
Nick is not going to win any Gold Gloves in the outfield.
Mm-mm.
He'll win a Gold Glove in my book for effort, because the guy busts his ass when he's out there.
Well,
he's just not very fast. But last postseason, he was the reason they went that far, was because of the defense he played.
Two of the biggest plays of the whole entire
Absolutely.
Year, yeah.
So leave that alone.
Mm-hmm.
Leave Nick in right field. The only issue you're going to have, if you're going to continue to play, you just can't. There's too many problems if they don't have a set lineup. And by a set lineup, I mean a set lineup for right-handers and a set lineup for left-handers.
Yes.
Marsh has to be on the field defensively. I believe, in left field.
Mm-hmm.
Rojas has got to be in center, and you got Castellanos in right.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be your starting outfield against right-handers. Now, what are they going to do? Well, with Rojas, they might put Marsh in center field.
Yeah, Rojas does cover a lot of ground as well.
Rojas is the best center fielder we have.
Yeah, but, young kid, not a whole ton of experience on a team that's kind of in a win-now mode. Do you think he's ready for that spotlight?
I don't know if offensively he's ready for that spotlight, but defensively he is. There is no problem with a guy that plays outstanding defense. Hitting the baseball is much harder than catching it. Right. So this kid, defensively, you're going to get the best center field that can be played. Marsh plays a good center field. I think Rojas just covers more ground. You got Marsh in left field. Now the gaps aren't as big. The left center field gap won't be as big, because Rojas will actually be able to shade the opposite direction, because Marsh can cover so much ground as well. But it makes your lineup better. Marsh has looked pretty good against left-handed pitching this year. He hadn't been bad. But these guys, when they come to the ballpark, when they get there, before they get there, they have to know whether or not they're playing the night before. And these are decisions Rob Thompson's got to make the night before in the postseason. Yeah. You don't go home during the playoff season and not know if you're playing the next day. That can't happen. So he's got to come up with a set lineup that he's going to use against right-handed pitching, set lineup he's going to use against left-handed pitching, and he has to stick with it.
Yeah.
And that way he'll have bats available off the bench late in the game that you can trust. So for me, it's all about defense and pitching when you get to the postseason.
Yeah, and that was more my question. Defensively, right? I think we would agree that Rojas has to be available. But is he also better suited? Maybe Pache's an answer. He doesn't have much more experience, but he's got a little bit more major league experience. Maybe he's your answer, and then you have Rojas as a guy who fifth inning is a defensive replacement type of a guy.
Well, they won't do that in the fifth. They won't do that until the eighth or ninth. Yeah. But Schwarber is going to start some games in left field in the postseason. We might as well come to grips with that. But this lineup is so deep.
Yeah.
And it's finally good to see them going out and putting up big numbers for the pitching staff, because the pitching staff didn't throw all that great. And granted, Bohm made a 3-run error at third base. That kind of crap happens. You can't worry about that. Bohm has played pretty damn well at third base this year. Way better than he did last year. He's way more confident. You got the shortstop. Turner is finally starting to look like Trey Turner. Like I said, with JT, you got the best of both worlds when offensively he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, because he's one of the best catchers in baseball defensively. Now, if he can put it together offensively and continue to get back to square at the plate, this lineup just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. The one thing I would want from Rojas or Pache, I would have them bunt practicing every single day. And I don't mean take 2 bunts, one each direction before you start taking BP. I mean practice bunting.
Yeah.
When you're hitting at the bottom of the order, it's no different than if you're hitting 8, it's no different than hitting 2, in my opinion. If the 7-hole hitter gets on base and you're hitting 8, that 7-hole hitter better be standing on second base when your at bat's over. And the only way to ensure that is to be able to go the other way with the baseball if you're a right-handed hitter, pull it if you're a left-handed hitter, or get a bunt down. Yeah. And I'm sorry, I'm going to say this. Bunting is the easiest thing in the game of baseball.
But
if you're number one,
it's a lost start, brother.
Completely lost start. You could throw me 100 pitches. I will get 98 of them down bunting, because all you're doing is catching the ball with the bat. If you have hand-eye coordination, it's simple. But if you don't work at it, look at Stubbs. Tell me he doesn't work on his bunting. He works on it because it's a weapon for him.
Right.
And these guys at the bottom of the order are going to need to be able to move runners and put them in scoring position.
Agreed. I actually want to come back and circle back on that. After we hear from RTC here, I would love to touch base on this again.
Mitch Williams here. If your company ships freight, join my winning team at Raymond Transportation Corporation. Let us become part of your team. RTC has been serving shippers nationwide for 26 years. With 10 terminals located throughout the U.S., volume LTL, small LTL, truckload, and rail. You can count on RTC to be the closer you need. I know firsthand that the Delaware Valley demands accountability. Call me at 800-206-3983 to schedule a meeting. Give me one shipment, and we will earn the rest.
Yes, sir.
There you go. You heard it from Mitch there. Any of your shipping needs, freight needs, make sure you hit them up at RTC.
Absolutely.
Best in the Delaware Valley, brother.
Yes. Best in the country at on-time delivery at 98%.
There you go. So, yeah, make sure you guys check them out. Hit that 800 number. But, Mitch, let's get back to it, right? We're talking about the lost start of bunting, kind of an unexpected conversation. But I want to kind of talk about that, right? Because you're absolutely right. And there are guys on this team who are, ideal guys who would be in those situations, right? Why do everybody falls in love with launch angle and the long ball? And we know that that's what the game's become, since the Randy Johnson commercial back in the 1990s about chicks digging the long ball. But you know me, Mitch, I'm a fan of
small ball, St. Louis baseball.
I'm a fan of small ball and just situational hitting. Why do you think it's such a lost art at this point? Is it guys just aren't taking the time? Because you're right? A lot of it is when you're bunting, you're receiving
you're doing is catching the baseball with the bat. Right. The guys that can't do it are the ones that poke at it and go up there and poke at it and poke at it. No, all you're doing is putting the bat where the baseball is and catching it. It's pretty simple. But when you look at it, the reason they don't do it is because, number one, they very seldom hit and run anymore.
That's true.
Which I hate. I want to pressure the defense every single chance I get. And what hitters don't understand, the number of big innings that are started with a bunt is unbelievable, because it pressures the defense. They throw the ball away. Now, instead of having a guy on first base with one out, you got a guy on second and third because the third baseman fielded a bunt and threw it down the right field line. These are the kind of things you have to do in the postseason to win. You can't leave guys in scoring position, and you can't leave guys standing on first base with nobody out. You have to move them. The reason guys don't do it, how big a check do they write for a guy that can bunt? None. They just don't. But the fact of the matter is that bunt leads to winning. Winning leads to money in the owner's pockets. So if I had a guy, if I was an owner and I had a guy that every time he came up there, he did what was necessary to move the runner up safely into scoring position. I'm paying him for that. That's just the way I feel about the game, because he's playing it to win it. He's not being selfish. He's playing to win the baseball game.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, it's another thing you mentioned, right? Like, some people could say, well, the catching's gotten stronger when you look at guys as far as keeping runners on and throwing guys out, right? And I don't agree with that, by the way.
No.
There's situations, I mean, the pitch clock is kind of in the game now, but even before then, you had pitchers who worked so slow. And that's ideal times to hit and run or steal bases, and guys just won't do it. They won't do it anymore.
And it's coming up as a hitter and looking where all your defensive fielders are. And back when they did the shift, when the shift was allowed, I'm sorry. If I'm going up there and there ain't nobody on the left-hand side,
I'm punching the ball there all day.
Second base, I can push a bunt down the third base line 4 at-bats in a row. It's just not that hard. You go in after the game, you're 4 for 4.
Yep.
These guys were giving up hits, and no one would take them. At least Bryce would try it every now and then, and he'd get a knock out of it. Why?
Uh-huh.
Because he's unselfish. He wants to win the baseball game. Now that they've taken the shift away, they still shade that third baseman to the middle. They put the shortstop just to the left side of second base because legally that's where he has to be now. But the third baseman's in the hole. If I'm a left-handed bunter, all I'm doing is pushing the ball down the third base line. It's just that simple.
Yeah, and they won't do it anymore, and that's the thing too. Particularly when you see guys who are struggling at the plate, right? Sometimes it's just a little bit of just a little confidence booster, just being able to punch it down there, whether it's through a bunt or just hitting the other way instead of trying to pull everything. Guys just won't do it, and it's.
I'll tell you what, Crum. Here's a great story. Back in '89 with the Cubs, Zimmer was the manager.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone knew Don Zimmer did some crazy shit when he was managing. This is a true story. We're in Cincinnati. We got guys on first and second. Damon Berryhill's at the plate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Zimmer puts on a hit and run with guys on first and second. Well, the runners take off. Chris Sabo, the third baseman, runs to third base to accept the throw from the catcher. Berryhill hit it exactly where he was standing. For a base hit, run scores. Now you got first and third and nobody out.
Mm-hmm.
The very next time Berryhill came up, same 2 guys on first and second. Zimmer puts the hit and run on again. Sabo runs to third base. Berryhill hits it right where he was standing again. You're talking about those are 2 ground outs that would have to double plays. They would have been double plays, no question about it.
Yeah.
Instead, you got to run in and you got guys on first and third. That's called pressuring the defense. And a bunt will do the same thing hit and run does. It makes guys start moving, gets them out of position. So I'm doing all that I can if I'm a manager. They just lost because they're paying so much money for the home run. How about you pay these players based on what they do to help you win? Because a hit and run that's successful and a bunt that's successful is just as important as a home run. They both need the runs.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I think this kind of speaks to what you're talking about, right? And these are guys who are intentional hitters. And I can't give you the exact number off of the top of my head, but I could tell you that I had seen a statistic when Matt Carpenter, who was a very professional hitter in his prime, right?
Yep.
I had seen a stat where he was always so smart, never swung at bad pitches. And he was, I think for the first, literally 8 years of his career, he had never once swung at a 3-0 pitch. Always took every pitch, never swung at a pitch like that. And it was interesting because they started talking about that. But the one thing he would never do, they would put the shift on him. He would never hit the ball the other way. He pulled everything. And
well, he's a dead
they
pull
feel
hitter.
like that's what they have. They feel like that's what they're getting. but he was such a professional hitter. I've seen him hit the ball the other way, but it just feels like it's like you said, it's like they're almost pressured at this point because of the financial investment put into them. We're talking about doing the small things, whether it's bunting a ball, hitting it the other way, putting a hit and run on, a delayed steal, different things like that they don't do anymore. And a lot of it is because the finances are in the long ball or the strikeout,
which is, and to me, is stupid. When I first came to the big leagues, all I wanted to do was strike everybody out. I used to get pissed if I had two strikes on a guy and he popped up in foul territory. I was hoping the ball would go in the stands. Honest to God, that's the way I thought. Until I got about 4 years in the game. I don't care if it hits me in the forehead and goes to the first baseman. I want the out. I didn't care how I got it. And that's how these hitters have to approach it. When you come to the plate, your objective is to get on base any way you can. And if they're giving you something, you're an idiot if you don't take it. Yeah.
And sadly, it's so bad that people wouldn't take it that they had to change the rules. From giving up to make it so they weren't giving up hits anymore, opportunities for hits anymore. Think about that.
Yeah.
It's very bizarre.
I think it's absolutely stupid because as far as I know, when the inventor of baseball invented baseball, he did it with the whole idea. If you put your defense where you think that ball's going.
Mm-hmm.
So to eliminate the shift, for me, it shouldn't have been allowed.
Yeah.
Do I like watching it? No, I don't like watching it. But the fact of the matter is, you got 8 guys on defense, 9 guys on defense if you count the pitcher. You can put them, if you want to put all 8 of them, all of the 8 guys behind the pitcher between first and second, you should be able to do that. That's just my opinion. That's how the game was designed. You put your guy, when they're shifting outfielders and shifting infielders, that's what they've always done. You try and take advantage of habits. And if a guy is habitually pulling the ball, defensively, you should be able to do whatever you want to do defensively. I don't care if you put all 8 of them up around the mound. That used to be a joke with some of the guys that couldn't hit. How do we defend him? Just bunch him around the mound. He ain't going to hit the ball very far. So that to me is one of the rule changes that Manfred is completely screwed up. It doesn't make you a better hitter if you go up there and do the same thing every time and you're getting hits with it. Well, now they put a defense out there that's taking those hits away.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to adjust as a hitter. Take the ball the other way. And they just don't. They're giving hits on the infield to the left side back when they were doing that. And they're still doing it today because they moved the third baseman so far offline. But you have to be unselfish and able to get a bunt down. And there's too many guys today that just can't bunt.
No, it's true. That's a fact. So listen,
and it's fear. A lot of it's fear.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's fear. It's a lot of pressure of being what people expect now. I feel like there's a lot of guys too who are there's a confidence, a self-confidence issue sometimes because of what the expectation is in the game now, and are afraid to kind of sometimes, like you said, go out and just do the basics, the little things to win.
Fans got pissed at Bryce because on occasion he would do that.
Yeah.
Well, if I don't feel comfortable at the plate or that night I'm not swinging the bat well and they're giving me the entire left side of the infield,
I'm punching it that way. Of course,
I am going to take a base hit and get something started.
Mm-hmm.
Sacrifice bunts, hit and runs, anything that pressures that defense, you're on the right track as an offense.
Yeah.
Because they start throwing the baseball around. It's that simple. When they're pressured, they panic. When you panic, you throw shit down the line. And now you've turned a sacrifice bunt into second and third with nobody out.
Yep, it's 100% a fact. So this week coming up, Mitch, we have it's the tale of two halves with this week because you got a tough series at home against Atlanta. which listen, we know the division it's for all intents and purposes it's over. They're 15 games back. However, I look at this series as a really important series because this is a team that you could see at some point in the playoffs. It's a divisional rival. It's a team that's winning your division. And this is a chance to start battle testing yourself for the playoffs this upcoming month. So we have that, and then we go to St. Louis with a team that's not playing very well, hasn't played well all season. The Phillies swept them when they were here. I think there's another opportunity to go there and really solidify that first wild card spot. But
we said, they're 5 games up.
Yeah.
They took 6 games
still
off.
Gaining, even though they're going 500 this week.
They played 500 baseball, and they gained a half a game in the wild card. That's, for me, that's a bird's nest on the ground.
Yeah.
We didn't play well, and we still gained. Now let's go out there and play well and add on. Like we said last week, if you take 6 games off the schedule in September and you've gained anything, you're doing well.
Yeah. And obviously we're going to be playing against one of the, outside of Ohtani, arguably the best player in baseball in Acuna. His name's in that hat.
Yes.
What do you think the keys to the series are in terms of this upcoming homestand against Atlanta?
We have to be more efficient pitching, keep Acuna off the base paths, and stay away from big innings. This offense that the Phillies have, a big inning, in my opinion, is a 3-run inning.
Yeah.
Stay away from 3-run innings, and this offense can bail you out as a pitcher. And we've seen it. We've seen pitchers go out there and give up 3 runs. Sanchez did it. Went out and gave up 2 or 3 runs, and then the offense just exploded, and I think the final was 12-5 or something like that.
Yeah.
But as a pitcher, you have to look at it and go, I do have an offense. I've got an offense to back me up, which would give me confidence. Okay, if I get myself in a situation where I have to make a pitch, I'm going to try and make that pitch. If I don't do it and I walk the guy, so what? I'll get the next guy. That's how you have to think. Have enough confidence in yourself to get the next hitter and your lineup to put runs up for you.
You know what?
And this lineup is getting hot.
Let me correct myself real quick. We have the Padres this week. So that's my bad. That's again. So let's even go into there because we know what that lineup's supposed to be. The Padres, the biggest disappointment we've talked about in baseball. They have Atlanta next week. So we'll touch on that again. We'll circle back. That's my bad. That was my bad at 12 a.m. trying to put a criteria together. The Padres this week. So in San Diego. This is one of the most disappointing. So actually, I'm kind of glad that this is who it because I love talking Padres with you. The most, in my opinion, the biggest disappointment in the sport this year in terms of a roster that is stacked. And I know we actually talk about them fairly often when you talk about, you have Soto, you have Tatis, who I think we both agree Tatis is not our favorite. We question Tatis and his dedication to the team. Let's just say that. Obviously, Machado's having a down year. When you look at the pitching staff, it should be so much better when you talk about Darvish and some of the guys that are in that. They've invested so much money in this team, and they just they're just another year of disappointment.
Well, Darvish is at the back end of his career. So everybody knows that.
Sure.
He's not the guy he was when he first came over here.
No.
And even then, he was sporadic at times with the Rangers.
Yeah.
So this is a guy that I don't know if I'd count on him. That's just my opinion. And I look at that lineup. They have so many personalities in that lineup and talent, and I just don't think they jive together. And that's an issue. If you got 2 guys like Machado and Tatis that are making over $300 million, and what's Soto making?
Soto got a big deal too. I have to look up his numbers, but he
so
got a big...
you're looking at 3 guys that all want to be the man.
Yes.
They all want to be the head honcho. Well, it don't work that way. There should be one leader in that clubhouse. And watching the Padres play, I don't see any leadership at all.
No. So Soto is at 20. He's making $23 million this year. So it doesn't look like he signed his extension yet, which is interesting.
Yeah, he's only making $23 million. That's a shame.
He's only making $23 million. So I think he's got another year of arbitration. So they'll have him through next year. He's an unrestricted free agent after 2024. So
I'll tell you what, after 2024, Juan Soto will be gone from San Diego before God gets the news.
Oh, I don't even think it's going to go that long, particularly if this is how this organization's going. There's going to be teams that are still going to want him, even with a little bit of a down year. The kid is young. He's super talented. I think he could be another trade deadline deal next year.
The only place that kid's going to end up is going to be in New York.
Yeah, but which New York team?
I think Cohen. I think the Mets.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Cohen's got more money than sense, believe me.
It does make sense. I'd love to see him go there. And, particularly with the Yankees kind of pulling back the reins on the spending now with Hal running the show.
Right.
It wouldn't shock me. The Mets kind of learned that lesson this year too, though, Mitch. Look at these
Scherzer. Yeah, but you went out and signed Max Scherzer for $46 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
Max Scherzer's good. He ain't as good as he used to be.
No.
I mean, that's just, you're paying him way more than he ever made in his career. You're paying him for what he has done, not what he's going to do, and that's backwards. You got to pay a guy. It's got to be even. There's got to be a 50-50 split. I'm paying you for what you've done, but I'm also paying you for what you're going to do. And if you don't do what I'm expecting you to do, then I'm getting rid of you. And that's exactly what Cohen did.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree, but then, when you look at it and you go out and get a Verlander, right? Like, Verlander is still Verlander. It's incredible how good this guy is this late in his career. And I do think, it's a lot of it. We've talked about learning how to pitch with movement, learning how to pitch.
Learning how to pitch.
He's still doing it at the highest of levels. And again, what a steal it was for Houston to get him back. For, it's one of the, their owner didn't want to give him a 2-year deal or at the money he wanted, but for a year and a half and taking a good 20-something million off of that.
Yeah.
They're all in on that.
Well, Verlander, he's been in the postseason enough. He knows how to pitch, but he ain't the Verlander of 5 years ago, 6 years ago. They all come back to the game.
They do.
There's guys that rise above the game, but at some point, like Albert Pujols, he signed that $300 million deal out there with the Angels. What did he do?
Nothing.
Number one.
Him and Mike Trout, and I don't know if Hamilton was on that team at that point, but him and Trout played one playoff game together. Think about that. That's crazy.
And how sad is that?
And
now they got Ohtani, and they're not going to be playing in the postseason.
That's what.
It's not how much you spend; it's how you spend it.
Well, it's what drives me crazy about Trout, and I love the loyalty of guys, particularly now when you don't see that. But when we always talk about Los Angeles and West Coast teams, right? So I don't need to rehash that, but Major League Baseball has such an issue with marketing its biggest stars. And your two biggest stars in the league, both your American and international biggest stars in the league, are on the same team in Los Angeles, and nobody cares.
Nobody cares. And let me speak to loyalty for a second. Okay, I'll give you two different types of loyalty. When I became a free agent after 91, I was one of the youngest free agents ever. I was 26 years old.
Yeah.
I went to the Phillies. I said, I don't want to go anywhere. I said, just make me an offer that's fair.
Right.
They made me an offer that I thought was fair, and I signed it. You know how easy it is to be loyal when someone throws $400 million at you,
Yeah.
it's real easy to be loyal. But where does Mike Trout end up every October?
At home.
Sitting at the stands at Lincoln Financial
Oh,
Field watching the Eagles play.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. He doesn't have to
when
miss
he should be in a postseason with a team somewhere.
I agree. And it's painful to watch when two of the biggest players in the game, they're not there at the biggest moment in the game or at the biggest time of year for the game.
When you have your greatest broadcast viewership in the game, October, those two guys ain't being seen.
Mm-mm.
No one is watching them.
Mm-mm.
And you'll get to, it's like Tatis, Machado, and San Diego. There's no way the Phillies should have been able to beat them last year in the postseason.
No.
But they did.
No.
So if I'm the Phillies, and I say it every week, just play the game that's in front of you. That's the time of year we're at right now. You play the game that's in front of you, do your best you can to win that game, and then move on to tomorrow. Take another game off the schedule without losing ground.
Mm-hmm.
If you do lose a game, hopefully the team closest to you underneath loses too. Like you said, we played 500 baseball this week. We gained a half a game. That's a successful week.
Yeah. They round out this week the Marlins. They're playing at home. That's where the homestand starts. They have the Marlins before hosting Atlanta next week. So I think it's another opportunity because the Marlins have kind of been up and down at this point. It's another opportunity for them to come in. A team that can be tough and a team that's given them problems. Again, it has a playoff feel in that, okay, maybe in the standings they're not a playoff team, but there's a team that you always have to this team always scuffles and struggles against the Marlins.
Yeah, and the last trip down there for me was a season-defining trip.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 4-game trip. They could have got swept.
Yeah.
They could have split. They took 3 out of 4 down there. And what did they do? They put the Marlins from 1 game up to 1 game back of them in the standings. And where have they gone since?
Down.
Why? Because the Marlins have figured out, number one, that's a young team. There's a lot of guys on that team that ain't played 162 games. It is a grind. So I felt very confident that what they had done in the first half of the season, there's an old saying here in Texas, a horse shit quick, don't shit long. Yeah. And that's exactly what you got with the Miami Marlins. They went out gangbusters. Look at the Tampa. What do they start, 12-0?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that? You can't win a division in April, but you can lose one.
Yeah.
And this team is proof. You can't win the division in April because what has Baltimore done to them? They've run them down and caught them.
Yeah.
So this is the time of year that should be the most fun. You try and find ways to get your energy level up, to get you feeling normal. It's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. You just got to do things the concentration level at this time of year has to be at its peak.
Yeah.
You watch the Phillies flounder the whole first half of the season. Well, April and May, in my opinion, they just floundered. They got to June and they started playing their style of baseball.
Yeah.
And it's carried over, and I expect it to carry over the rest of September.
Yeah, and again, I think this is a good opportunity for them. It's a good week against two teams that are I don't want to say Miami's underachieving. Miami is maybe ran out of gas towards the end here. And so they kind of remind me a little bit of what I watched how Milwaukee was for a while when Prince Fielder was there, and they were starting to they were a young team, a young Ryan Braun, and they would make a run the first 4 months of the year. And sometimes they'd be right neck and neck with St. Louis or Chicago, whoever was kind of the lead dog in the division. But eventually they would hit the last month of the season and kind of run out of gas, or the last 6 weeks of the season. But they were on the cusp of being there. And I kind of feel like that's where Miami's at. They've got a lot of young talent. They're building there. But as you mentioned,
they'll trade it away.
Right. And
the minute they get to a point where they're going to make money, they're going to trade them away.
Right.
So Miami is stuck.
It's true, but they still, at some point, they seem to find the chemistry that is going to mix for that short 2-year window, right? It might take them a decade. Every decade it happens for 1-2 year window, and maybe they're not far away from it because they do have young guys there that can be very talented. And I feel like they're not that far away from being a competitor in the division. I'm not saying they're going to be on Atlanta's level or even the Phillies, but you got to remember the Phillies are getting older too, Mitch. Phillies are getting, they're starting, and there's going to be a time youth must be served at some point, and there's going to be a time where Miami's going to be turning that corner. So I think they're on.
We had a listener bring it up. Miami's not our bugaboo. One of our listeners just brought up the Mets. The Mets is who we can't beat, and we still got 7 games left with them. They suck right now. You don't have to worry about Verlander. You ain't got to worry about Scherzer. You ain't got to worry about who's the big right-hander that went to Texas. DeGrom. You ain't got DeGrom. None of it. That pitching staff is decimated. If you don't sweep the Mets the rest of the way out, that's a problem because they punted.
Yeah.
Cohen's 4th and 18, and he punted a month ago.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. Again, they're right up there with San Diego, who, another name we don't bring up very often is Xander Bogaerts is in that lineup too. He's one of the best players in baseball too with San Diego. But another really important week for the Phillies this week, Mitch. So we'll see. I'll say 6 games this week. I honestly, truly believe they should be able to take 5 out of 6.
Playing the Padres, I don't disagree with that. Padres, and then coming home and they play Miami.
Yeah,
they should be able to take 5 out of 6.
Listen, I'll say
if they keep their eye on the ball.
Yeah, I'll say 4 of 2 is a success, but I think they should take 5 out of 6 this week.
I agree.
Anything else for the cause, my friend, before we
No, I got to do a little work on the farm, buddy.
All right. Well, listen, thank you to Gleason's, obviously to RTC. Make sure you guys check them out. Gleason's Bar, 6700 Mill Creek Ave, Levittown, PA, with the promo code A2D. 10% off dine-in, takeout, or online. Check them out, Gleason's Bar and Steaks.com. And obviously, RTC, 800-206-3983. All your freight services anywhere in the country. You check them out. You got to get stuff moved and shipped. You give them a call there. Mitch and the fam will get you taken care of over there. But
yes, sir.
Another big week for the Phils, Mitch. We'll see what happens next week. We'll circle back when they actually do play Atlanta and St. Louis, and we won't have a
You got it, brother.
A 1 a.m. criteria. But Tom will be back with us next week. I appreciate you, Mitch, Ralph on the back end, and all you fam who commented here. Thank you for myself, for Mitch, and everybody at A2D. Happy Labor Day. Give some